The next icon on our list is the lettering. I have shown this tutorial in a couple different previous. One is under ES21L. You'll see several different techniques there, and then I showed it in Deco Studio. I could spend a whole day on lettering under the Embroidery Studio. So please check out the other tutorial if you want to know. I'm just going to go make this a little brief on here. So if you left click, you could start typing on your default lettering selected. Otherwise, right click will bring up your lettering properties. I'm going to go ahead and type in sample. Now I have sample through here. Because I had that selected, I could also insert symbols through here. So if there's a certain trademark or European font or something that's not on my keyboard, I can select those and insert that. While I had the font selected and typed in, you can see the word sample. If I had something else typed in there, it would show how that font would look. I'm going to go ahead and keep it as it is. That's if you have preview. If you don't have preview selected, then it will just show the alphabet. I can also change a height on there. So let's go ahead and make that 50. I could change a width, italicize it, change the baseline, the justified line if I have a fixed line, if I want to hug to the left side, right side, and so forth. I could go under the layouts and define how I want to position that lettering. So right now I have the lettering on top, so the baseline is below on there. I'm going to go ahead and click on create the text, and while I have that on there, I'm going to go ahead and generate the stitches. Now I have that selected is the lettering through here. If I go through here, you see the baseline is underneath. If I go layout and select it through the middle, the lettering will go through the middle. And then once again, if I go through the baseline to be a top, the lettering will fall underneath the baseline. If I go through a fixed line, I could actually go through the layout and change the letter spacing, the width, the size, and so forth as a fixed line. So what I mean by that, let's go ahead and say 250 on here. And you will see the baseline is on a larger scale through here. So let's zoom out. It is sitting in the middle. That's because my Justify says center. If I click on left, it will hug the left side of the baseline, go to the right side, or the full width. So these are just a few samples through here. Now, because I have a fix, I could actually change the spacing and the width of the lettering or the size. So for one, I'm going to go ahead and select the spacing and width. And I'm going to go ahead and add additional lettering in here. So I'm going to just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because I said the width, the letter will stay the same height, but the width will change. So if I say update, you will see the letters actually got width change. And then if I go through the layout and say size, that means the lettering will tend to go smaller on that baseline, as you see through here. Now if I go back and delete those lettering and say OK, it will default back to my height and resize the lettering. I could go also change the lettering spacing. So if I say 25, it changes that. But if you notice, there's an arrow through here, and that is actually the letter spacing. So if I bring it in, that is the spacing, as you see under here. So I'll go back to 10, it changes spacing. The word spacing, if you have multiple words, it will create spacing on the words and multiple lines. There's an auto kerning, and this is something I would recommend going to the previous video as lettering 21L. And then the sequence is whether you want to sew from left to right, right to left, center out, as maybe on a hat. And if you have multiple line, if you start from the top or from the bottom, and so forth. The connection is where the lettering hits. So if I go through here, you will see all the connections are at closest point. So if I go through here and say sequence at the bottom, that means the lettering will connect all on the bottom. The other one is as digitized. I recommend not to use this unless you are using two-color lettering or a font that might be as a run stitch, because this is how the digitize is created, and he might have created the lettering as segments, so you might end up with a bunch of trimming. So that's a quick sample on there. You can also go up there to your special and to save the letter when you reshape the lettering and update your kerning table. What I mean by that, if I select this and go to my reshape tool, I could actually click on the line and reshape that letter. And if I'm happy with that, I could take that letter and go to my special and then save that letter so I don't ever have to reshape it again. And that would fall under your category up here as your use save version. Let's undo that. So those are just a couple of different samples. And once again, you can scale each individual letters. You could change the width. You could italicize the lettering. You could rotate it. If you hold your control key or shift key, you could take it off the baseline. Control will allow you to move it any way you want it. I'm going to go ahead and undo that several times. Now, we're going to get into the graphic mode. So the graphic mode I have here, I'm going to go ahead and select the letter A and type in my sample. Now I have my word sample through here, and I'm going to go ahead and select a different font through here. That is the artistic text. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to pull that down and make a copy. This one, I'm going to go ahead and convert it to curves. So now that is created as a graphic file and no longer a lettering. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one and make another duplicate. And this one, I'm going to go ahead and say tag it as a turning stitches. So we'll create more of a true type font, but it's not identified at any particular type of font. It's just going to treat it as a true type font. Then the final one, I'm going to go grab this one, make a duplicate. And this is the artistic text, but I could go to my Wacom lettering and use a true type font or a professional digitized embroidery font and tag it. So I could keep it as a block 2 on there. So it's going to create it as a block 2, even though it does not look like block 2, as you see here. It's going to treat it as if it was embroidered block 2. I'm going to grab all those, and I'm going to convert it, and let's see what happens. Now that we have converted over, I'm going to go ahead and say Shift D to take off my graphic. I'm going to bring it up on the screen here. On the first one, we created a true type font, and usually it would use your converting tables through here of how we'll create it, and it did a very nice job. The next one was converted, but as you notice through here, if I box in the letter E, it treated as embroidery object, so it did not take the turns as I want. Because it was converted to an outline graphic file, and it did not create it as a true type font or embroidery font. So as you can see on the L and the E, but the one below, I tagged it as treated as embroidery lettering. So it created the E and the L as if it was a true type font, and did a very nice job on that. The last one was actually created and tagged as block 2. So it created the block 2, and now I could go and justify that And I could actually go also add on additional lettering and treat it as block 2. Even though the graphic was not block 2, I tagged it as that way. So this is just a couple different samples of doing this. So don't forget, you can also go through your lettering through here and go through your enveloping and do all sorts of enveloping, creating a bridging or so forth. So please check out my tutorials under ES21L and Deco Studio.